Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Danielle and I am the owner of Damn Fancy Creations. If you guys are new to my channel, I do want to let you know that you can catch my content in two other places. I have a large tutorial group on Facebook as well as a smaller patron group where I offer free files, discount codes, and group challenges each month. Both of those groups are super fun, so I'm going to drop the links in the description if you guys want to check those out. For today's tutorial, I have finally jumped on the pin bandwagon. I have avoided doing glitter pins for probably about a year now, but I just decided to jump in, give them a try, and I thought that they would be super cute to add to my Christmas holiday mystery boxes. So I did a few of them and I ended up really loving how they turned out. And they weren't quite as difficult as I thought that they would be. So I decided to do another batch to sell in my VIP group. So I figured that I would film these for you guys. You know, I don't know if you guys have done these or not, or if there are questions about them that you've had, or maybe you've been hesitant to jump in, kind of like I was. So during this tutorial, I'm going to kind of share with you some different ways how I do these glitter pins. You know, you can use a UV light, you can set them out in the sun. If you don't want to use UV resin, you can use epoxy. You can apply the glitter multiple ways. So I did them a couple different ways. So I will kind of share with you guys what tips and tricks I've learned along the way and the best way for me, how I completed them, that may answer some questions that you guys had. So I thought these turned out super cute. You know, I'm probably just going to make these as like ready to ship items because even though they are like tiny little pins, it is a lot of work involved. You have to prep them just like you would a tumbler. You know, they just aren't going to take us long to complete because we're going to be using UV resin versus regular epoxy. So if you guys are ready to see how I created these fun holiday pins, let's get started. Alright guys, so first things first, I'm going to show you guys what we're going to use. So these are the Papermate Ink Joy gel pins. This is what they look like. These pins completely come apart. Here is what the package looks like that you can get at the store. You can also purchase them in bulk off of Amazon. We're going to need some straws. We're going to need some needle nose pliers, some UV resin, and a sanding block. So the very first thing we're going to do is detach this little piece. I just grab it with my pliers and twist so it comes off. And we are going to do that to all of these pins. This one just kind of snapped off. And some of these I already detached. So now what we're going to do is disassemble the pins. The top unscrews off, and then you can empty out the ink barrel and the little clicker top. I don't even know what you would call that. So now you basically have a hollow tube. So we're going to do this to all of the pins. And I just put all of my little pieces in a plastic cup. If you would rather put it in a baggie or something else, I just put it in a cup downstairs. Sometimes the little tops get stuck in there, but you can push it through with the ink barrel and it will pop right out. And after we get all of these pins emptied, we are going to prep them by sanding with a sanding block. And the reason why we're going to prep them is because the coating on these pins is basically a rubber, and we want to make sure that it's kind of scuffed up and not slick. There's also a plastic surface on it as well, so we want to make sure that everything is just kind of roughed up a little bit so the epoxy has something to hold on to, or your UV resin has something to hold on to. Because we all know if you try to apply it to a slick surface, the epoxy does not adhere as well. And the same with UV resin. For those of you that do ornaments, you know you have to sand the blank before we apply the UV resin or epoxy. This is the same concept. So I'm just going to take my sanding block, and I'm really going to focus on this little part where we removed the little plastic piece because it is a little bump. And for the plastic little bump, I'm going to use a 60 or 80 grit paper just to really sand that piece off. I'll kind of show you guys. So it's just plastic, and the 60 and 80 grit is pretty rough, so it doesn't take long to kind of sand that little bump down. And the reason we're sanding this down is so we have a smooth surface to work with. And typically I would be over my sink doing this and doing wet sanding, but I'm just trying to show you guys where we're going to sand. And there's another little raised part on the back too with two little hearts, so we're also going to sand that part down. So now you guys can see that it's pretty smooth. Trying to focus my camera here, which is not working out too well for me. And so I'll just move the pin down. But so we're going to do this with all of our pins. So once everything is pretty roughed up, you guys can see that it has a flat kind of hazy appearance. You can definitely tell it's been sanded. So I will sand them and wash them really well. And I am using straws to hold my pins. I know most people use dowels, but every time I would go to the store, I could not find them. So I was just kind of going through all of my stuff at home, trying to think of what else could hold these pins. And I have several of these smaller ones. I typically don't send them out. I really just send the larger straws out, or ones that I purchase from Amazon with my orders. So using these straws to hold my pins did not affect my straw to cup ratio. So now that all of the pins are on their little straws, I am just going to use flat white primer and spray paint them all. And the holder for these pins is just a noodle. This is just a noodle that I picked up at Walmart and just cut probably a foot off of it, and that is my pin holder. So this just goes to show you guys that y'all don't need anything fancy to complete these. All you need are pins, straws, and a noodle, and you have your holder. And I'm just turning the noodle and spray painting each side of the pin. And once these dry, we will be ready to glitter. So these are all white. And I am going to glitter them with clear gloss spray from Rustoleum. So basically all I'm going to do is spray paint this pin the same way I would do my tumblers. And I'm just sprinkling my glitter on. I'm using Coconut Snowball Martini from the Drunk Flamingo. I am out of stock on this right now due to my Black Friday sale, but I do have more coming. So you guys can see how quick that was. And once it's glittered, I'm just putting it right back in that noodle. So I'm spraying this one, and I'm just sprinkling from the top down, letting it kind of cascade down the sides. And you can always kind of tap your pen in the glitter below to also pick up some more glitter. And anytime I glitter pins or tumblers or anything for that matter, I always use a gloss spray because the gloss stays tacky or wet longer than the matte spray does. The matte clear spray tends to dry a lot quicker. And the reason I'm doing several white ones is because I am going to apply Waterslide to some of these or vinyl, and I wanted just kind of a sparkly base for those. So now that our white pins are finished, we're going to move on to some different colors. So I am going to be making a few pencil ones, and I prefer the look of the pencils kind of like the colors fading into each other instead of a straight line. I just think it kind of makes them a little whimsical. Obviously, if you want your lines sharper, then you could pour your glitter a little more straight than I do. So I'm using mimosa for the basically wooden part of the pencil. So I just sprinkle mimosa just on the very tip of the pen barrel. And I am angling it so the glitter kind of falls down a little bit just to give it that gradient look that I want. If you do not want that look, you would just sprinkle yours while your pen is held straight. So then we're going to use our yellow next. And I'm going to spray it about 3/4 of the way. This is going to be the body of the pencil. So I'm angling the pen a little down, and then I'm going to angle it a little up so that the yellow falls a little towards the front of the pen and a little bit towards the back of the pen. And I'm just turning the straw as I sprinkle my glitter. And one more yellow. And this yellow is also Lemon Drop Martini from the Drunk Flamingo, but I am out of stock on this one too, but it will be restocked. I have a huge glitter shipment coming next week. Y'all bought me out with my Black Friday sales. Or really, Black Friday week, I guess. Now we're going to use, I think it's 357 Magnum from Peachy Olive Glitter. This is a silver, and this is going to be the metal part that holds the eraser onto the pencil. And we're doing the same thing, just kind of letting the glitter fall in a gradient pattern down and up the pencil, or the pen barrel, I should say. And when this one is done, we're going to do the eraser part. And we're going to use Starburst Martini, also from the Drunk Flamingo, for the eraser part. And this one is finished. All right, so now all of my pencils are complete. I'm going to show you guys how I do an ombre in case you just want something simple. This is Mistletoe from Peachy Olive Glitters, and we're just going to use a white. Just something simple, and I figured these were Christmas. So I just dipped the front end into the glitter, and then I'm just angling my pen just like we did for the pencil one. So you guys can see that the glitter is just kind of falling up the barrel, or down the barrel, I guess. And then I'm just sprinkling a little bit with my fingers. So I'm just kind of rolling it around just to get an even surface. It was a little splotchy. And then we're going to do the same thing with the white. We're going to spray the back half of it. And we're going to sprinkle the glitter down the pen. So this looks pretty good right now. And I should have just left it how it was, but I did add a little bit more green. And I used a little bag because I felt like when I'm applying the glitter to the pen, it's easier to kind of shake out in a bag. I just kind of creased the bag. And I just wanted a little bit to come out. I probably could have used my tea strainer and that would have looked good too. And there we go. And I think I did add a little more white to it. And I prefer to use clear spray. I did try quick coat, UV resin, several different things, but to me, using clear spray paint is super easy to apply glitter. It dries a lot quicker. It's just easier in my opinion. So if you guys have not tried using clear spray paint to apply your glitter, you are missing out. So I will let these pins sit for a little while and dry, and then I will seal them really well with the clear spray. So now the pins are sealed with a clear spray. They have set for a while, no glitter is coming off, and now I am going to really seal everything in with UV resin. I just take a little paintbrush and I just squirt the UV resin onto my pins. And I'm just basically painting the UV resin on. Make sure you focus around the tops and bottoms as well. And then I will put this back in my noodle. So I'm going to do that to all of these in one of the noodles, and then I will take the entire noodle holder and set it outside. I have tried, curing each one with a UV light. I have tried putting them on my turner and holding the UV light over it. And in my opinion, nothing works better than just taking this whole little set and just setting it in the sun for a few minutes. And while this set is sitting in the sun, I will paint my other pin holder with UV resin. And I have a table set up outside, and I also have a screened-in porch. So I will either set this in my screened-in porch where the sun is hitting it, or I will set this on my table and then kind of block the noodle with paint cans so it doesn't blow off my table. Don't ask me how I figured out how I needed to do that. Pins covered with UV resin and grass is not fun to clean up. And it really doesn't take a lot. I usually do just 2 little squirts of UV resin, and that covers the entire pin. It takes even less after you have 1 layer of UV resin on there. And if you guys have not tried CCDIY's UV resin, y'all definitely need to try it. I have tried several from Amazon and other companies, and they all would feel tacky even after like 5 minutes. And CCDIY's is literally cured in like 60 seconds. Obviously, if I'm doing a huge group like this, it may take a little bit longer because I will rotate it so that the sun hits every part of every pin. And after I am done with all of these, I will go and smooth over the UV resin one more time, because since they have been sitting for a little while, they can kind of pull at the top. So I want to make sure that everything is just as smooth as possible. And so I will just kind of go over everything one good time, and then I will go set these outside. So after I have coated these with UV resin twice, I will take them off and sand them really well. This is the same thing we would do for turners before we apply vinyl or Waterslide or any type of decal. We want to work with a smooth surface. And you guys can also see that the bottom of the pen where the ink would come out, it can get coated with glitter, but I just take my sanding block again, and I am just lightly sanding because I don't want to rough up the rubber. I just want to get that vinyl off. And then I go back with my finer sanding block and kind of smooth out those edges. So now you see that everything is super smooth. And then we're going to do the same thing to the top. We're just very, very lightly going over this with our coarser sanding block. And then we're going to go over it again with our fine sanding block. And then we're going to take our blade and just kind of scrape out any epoxy or glitter or resin that could be on the inside of our barrel. And Birdie is after something, y'all. So once my edges are clean, I am going to sand the entire body of the pen, just smooth out any bumps, any divots, anything like that. And then I'm going to wash it really well with soap and water. So you can see that everything is super smooth. So I will show you guys how I do a couple more of these. So y'all can see that this one is pretty rough. And then after we clean the edges, everything's super smooth. So this pencil wasn't super rough at the butt of the pen, so I just used my finer sanding block and then just used my blade to kind of get any little stray pieces out of there. And if you are just applying vinyl to your pens, there's no need to put another coat of UV resin on these. But for all my white ones, I am going to use Waterslide. So after I sand them, I am going to do another coat of UV resin so that we have a smooth, shiny surface to work with when applying our Waterslide. So you guys can see that we are prepping, glittering, sanding, just like we would our normal tumblers. So now that everything has another coat of UV resin on it, we're ready to apply our Waterslide decals. These are just little wraps that I made. I did measure my pins, so I made these about 4.5 by 1.5 inches. Mine are going to be thicker because I'm applying these over UV resin and glitter. If you were just applying these over a painted surface, then your dimensions would probably be a little bit different than mine. But all I did was just measure and size my images to the dimensions I wanted in a Microsoft Word document and printed them out from there. I use Sunnyscopia brand Waterslide. I use clear inkjet, and I do seal one really good time with a gloss Rustoleum spray, the same stuff that I use to apply my glitter to my pens and tumblers. I do not like Krylon products. I don't use any other thing besides Rustoleum 2 times, and I've done this for years and it works out great. I don't typically have cracks or ink bleeding or anything like that. I also printed out some little tiny leopard spots and trees. I just printed random stuff that I thought would be cute to decorate with. And my little vinyl images were probably about a 1/2 inch or smaller, just so they wouldn't look too big on my pins. So I am just wetting the backing of my water slide. I don't submerge them in water. They literally release in like 30 seconds, so there's no need to just dump all this stuff in the water. So we're applying water slide to these pins the exact same way we would do to tumblers. We're getting the pins wet, and when the backing starts to release, I just kind of get it as straight as I can. And we're just wrapping the water slide decal around the pin. So pins are a little bit more tricky when you do full wraps because you don't really have anything to kind of grip onto. It's not like you can put your hand inside the tumbler, like you have to hold on to it. I should have probably put it back on my straw. That probably would have been a lot easier, so I wouldn't move the slide around when I was trying to get the water out from underneath it. But you live and learn. But we do the same thing. I just use my microfiber towel just to get out any water that was trapped underneath there. It is very important that you get water out from underneath the decals so that when the water dries, you're not going to have like an air bubble underneath there, because that will be visible under the epoxy or UV resin, whatever you're going to be using. So one is finished. So now we're doing the same thing with this one. I'm just kind of smoothing it out as I go. I thought this would be a little bit better. I'm just kind of smoothing the water out from underneath it as I turned the pin. Getting my microfiber towel, and we're just getting out any of that water. And that one is complete. This is the Sugar Plum Fairy scene. That's super cute. Alright, so now I'm going to apply little water slide pieces. This is just a little town. And again, I kind of measured these and sized them to what I thought I wanted. It's much easier to apply little tiny pieces of water slide to the pin than the full wrap. And I do go and kind of apply all of the water slide images and then go back and apply any vinyl ones, just so the water has time to dry and none of that water is going to get underneath the vinyl. So these were just cute little sugar plum fairies. Now we're going to apply some Christmas trees. And all of these images were from the same group of files that I purchased when I made my split cups from the last tutorial. I did kind of make these pins to go with those cups, since they were all being released in my same ready to buy live. I thought they would be cute together. And the pencils, I am not going to put anything on 3 of them, and then I'm going to put leopard print on some of them. And I did decide to add some leopard print to my ombre little pen. So I just used the CC DIY tweezers, just added some leopard print. And this one, I decided just to put some random trees everywhere and then some random leopard print spots. So those turned out super cute as well. And then I'm just going to go and add some, you know, again, random little pieces of vinyl to the pins. For these little sugar plum fairies, I just added some pink Christmas trees. Just a couple of them, but they turned out super cute. And for those of you that don't know, all of my vinyl comes from Perfect Press HTV. They're a local vinyl shop to me, but they also ship. I do link them in all of my tutorials, so you guys can check them out if you want. This that I'm using now, I think, is a holographic pink. A lot of their stuff does not have names when I go in store to pick it up, so I kind of just have to guess what it is on their site, what it's called. So once all the vinyl is on, I'm just putting these back on my little straws. And once the Waterslide is dry, I will apply another layer of UV resin on them. I typically wait about 30 minutes for the Waterslide to dry, but you can wait longer if that makes you feel more comfortable. And I did decide to add some little snowflakes to the little sugar plum fairies with the little town underneath. And I added some rose gold leopard print to the Christmas trees. I loved how this pen turned out. I did sell it, but I did almost keep it for myself. I will tell you guys that if you are applying the vinyl over Waterslide, you do need to make sure that the Waterslide is super dry. If not, then the vinyl will not stick to it, and it can cause it to kind of pop up when you go to epoxy or apply UV resin. It's kind of the same thing with tumblers. Sometimes that vinyl can be a little tricky. And I did decide to add some of the same vinyl to one of my pencils. I thought it turned out really cute too. And these tweezers just make it super easy to pick up these little tiny pieces. And you would think I would learn by now to get my head out of my camera shots, but you know, just got to keep things lively. So here's what this one looks like completed. So once this vinyl adheres to the UV resin and the Waterslide dries, I will put a final coat of UV resin on the pins the same way that we did previously. And once that UV resin has cured in the sun for about 5 minutes, they are ready to assemble. So I'm going to get all my little pieces. I will tell you guys, make sure you're putting the pin together the correct way. The first time I did this, I kept trying to put the silver part in through the back part of the pin, and I could not figure out why they were not working. I don't know, my brain just wasn't working then, I guess. So everything goes back through the pin through where you would write with. So put the silver piece in, then you put the ink barrel, and then you can screw on the little top. and just make sure that everything works correctly. Sometimes you may need to clean out the back a little bit if there's epoxy or UV resin that may be stuck in there. Maybe you missed just like a little dot of epoxy, and you can just go and scrape that out with your blade. I think I did have to do that with one of these. But once it assembles, it is ready to write with. And the reason why I like these pins is because you can purchase refills. So, you know, your customer isn't spending money on something that they're going to have to throw away. So this one was a little stuck in there. So I did just take my blade, and I saw that there was just like a little tiny piece of UV resin that was stuck in the barrel, but I could just easily scrape that out. And then we're ready to put it back together. And then it works perfect. And I do charge $15 for my pins, just because you guys watching this tutorial, you can tell that it is so much work for just a little pin. It's basically the same work you would do for a tumbler. You are prepping, glittering, epoxying, sanding, decaling, and then epoxying again and putting everything back together. So even though they may be small, it's still a lot of work to do. And since you can refill these pins, this is something that your customer can keep forever. It's not like, you know, they're going to pay $15 for something they'll have to toss when it's empty. They can keep these, and they should be able to keep them forever. So I'm just going to assemble the rest of these. And that would be pretty much it for this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I answered some of your questions that you may have had. And, you know, also just showing you guys that you don't have to purchase any special parts to complete these pins. You can just use straws, which all of us probably have on hand, and noodles, which we should have on hand as well. All you would need to purchase is the UV resin. And I will also point out, I don't think I mentioned it, my paintbrush I do clean off with acetone when I get done using it, and the UV resin comes right off. So you're not wasting a paintbrush when you do this either. And that is pretty much all there is to it. Here are some finished pictures of my pins. These are pretty much terrible lighting, but it's super awkward trying to photograph something that's so tiny. But I love how these all turned out. These pencils were super cute. If I did not answer your questions, or you still have a question about something that I did not cover, please just ask in the comments and I will answer it for you guys. You can also ask in my tutorial group. I'm always in that group helping you guys with things you need. And if you guys decide to try these, please post them, because I love to see what y'all come up with. If y'all enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group on Facebook or my Patreon group. Both are linked in the description. Thanks for watching.